Good afternoon, being there, outdoor group and preppy concepts. Chip Jackson here, making another video for you. Today we're going to be going over some basic knives, how to sharpen them, how to maintain your knives, and also on a side note, we're going to go over just basic prepping concepts on food and on kind of the societal factors that we have to deal with in order to be ready and to be prepped for anything that we need to do. Excuse me. So yeah, and then I'm going to show you also today, I am offering a sharpener for your knives. I'm also making a paracord lanyard for it. It gives you roughly 3 feet of paracord, which is good for like a shoelace replacement or making a bow drill for fire, tying off stuff. You know, paracord has a lot of good uses because it's really strong, and if you double it up, it gets even stronger. You can take paracord and make larger rope out of it that is really good stuff and can do just about anything you need it to do. Paracord by itself is strong under tension, but it doesn't like to flex, right? So under constant tension it's very strong, but it doesn't like to flex too much. It'll flex some and it's good. Now as you start to double paracord up, that flexing and compression becomes better. It will allow for more flexing and compression. So if you weave paracord into a thicker rope, paracord by itself does not like to say let you climb on it, but if you weave it into a thicker rope, it becomes excellent climbing rope because you're weaving it together and making it a stronger structure. But we'll get into stuff like that later. Okay, so what I'm gonna talk about today are 3 different types of knives. You have what they call fixed blade knives. You have what they call out the front knives, and you have what they call folding knives. Now we all saw probably, you know, if you had a dad like mine who was kind of into trade and hard work and stuff like that, you probably all saw our dads had those little folders in their pocket. They had the blade that popped out on one end and the blade that popped out on the other end, and usually had that wood looking middle section, right? And then my dad had several other knives as well. And as I got older, I just kind of got into knives and stuff. That's kind of my things. So, but being into survival and prepping, it also kind of pushed me to get into edged weapons, because sometimes using a firearm is not always the best idea. Okay? So, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later in the video when we talk about food preps and the human factor involved in that. Okay, so let's get right into the knives. The first one I'm going to show you is a knife I actually had made for me by a smith in Albury, England, I believe it is. Albury? Yeah, Albury. This is a skindoo, or a skinde in Gaelic. It literally means close to the body knife. Close to the body dagger. Skin, close to the body. Okay, so I had this made for myself because I'm Scotch Irish and I'm really into my heritage, plus it's a really cool knife. Yes, that is an actual deer handle on there. This is what's called a full tang knife. You have some knives that the metal only goes so far, and those tend to break and come apart much quicker, especially if you put them under serious use. I prefer a full tang knife. That means from the end of the knife to the tip of the knife, it's one whole solid piece of metal that they have either forged or ground or somehow machined into a knife. They have polished some of this on the side to take off the rough spots. That's what you see there. Okay, and they've got a really nice little end cap on there. I don't know how they got that pummel cap on there, but that's pretty sweet. He probably did a press weld. All right, and it has a genuine leather case, and they would usually hide, like women would hide this in their garter or somewhere on their person, so if they were accosted, they had a way to defend themselves. Okay, and men would also hide them in their socks or other places on their kilt or things like that. That's a little Scottish history for you. Okay, so we're going to show you the knife. It's a very nice knife. He did a superb job. This is polished, obviously. It's got a really nice finish on it. And this is all handmade. Now, when he made this knife, he only put a bevel on the blade, which basically means he took it on a grinder and ran it over a couple of times just to kind of put a really rough geometry on the edge of the knife so that later I could put my own edge on it. Some smiths will do that. I have started putting an edge on it. It is getting sharper and sharper. This is a really well-made knife, and so it's taken me a little while to kind of get the edge on there. But again, this is just a little personal dagger that I had made. A little Scottish style skin do or skin duh, depending on your translation. Okay, so that's kind of an old school fixed blade knife. Okay, now we're going to move on to a more modern knife. This is a knife that I carry on my person pretty regularly. All right, it has the Krydex kind of fiberglass case on it. It has a really cool clip on it that I'm going to show you. Okay, all right, so here's that knife. It's kind of a personal little dagger that I carry with me, my everyday carry. And now I carry different knives depending on how I'm dressed, and depending on where I'm going, and depending on what I'm doing. And, for example, I have a knife that I only use at work. When I go, I have a couple different jobs. I teach martial arts, and I'm also a chef. So when I'm at the restaurant, there's a knife that I carry specifically for that job. That's the tool that I have for that job, among other chef knives that I keep for myself that I use because, you know, tools of the trade. So this has a really cool little clip on it, and I'm going to show you. I can just kind of flip this little deal up right there. It's a little locking clip. I'm going to pinch in on this, and it's going to open up for me, so I can stick my belt in there. And it has all kinds of little holes, and you can adjust straight up and down. You can, you can mount it straight across, straight up and down. You can mount it inverted. This clip will allow you to pretty much mount it any way you can possibly think of, because you can adjust it any way you want. And if you look, it has a little ridge right there to adjust for the size of your belt, and that'll move in or out for the size of your belt to help keep the knife stable and from flopping around on you and sliding all over the belt, which is very annoying and will make you actually touch the weapon. And what that'll do is tell somebody, hey, he's got a weapon. Okay, this case is what's known as a friction retention. All right, it's basically that it kind of just pinches down on the knife when you push it down in there. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out. You're gonna hear it kind of slide out. All right, this is an Asian style knife. This is kind of a Japanese style samurai knife, kind of a Tonto style blade. It has the false edge on the back. It has a really nice little thumb groove right here, and really comfortable in the hand. And I'm gonna put it back in the case. Really sharp, by the way. And you have what's called G10 handle. Okay, what G10 is basically fiberglass on steroids. It's fiberglass that they have taken and put carbon fiber and different kinds of resins and coloring into to make it a little bit stronger. Now, I recently attended a tactical expo where they had a gentleman there. They had all kinds of different knives, and they had a guy there that clearly was hand forging knives from like old tools. A good piece of metal. If you need to forge a knife yourself, grab an old file or an old wood rasp, solid metal wood rasp or file. You can actually heat those up and bang them into a knife pretty quickly, and make a handle for them pretty easily, because they're already kind of in a good shape for you. And if you can heat them up, and it's a high carbon steel, and it's really good stuff, and you can make some pretty bangerang knives out of those. I've seen some hand forged knives out of rasps, hard to say, that were just gorgeous. But there was another gentleman there who was making knives out of G10. Again, fiberglass on steroids. And I'm like, man, I don't know, that's a non-metallic knife. There's no metal on this knife at all. The handles are all paracord or some kind of non-metallic item. And I was like, it's gonna stand up to like the rigors of using a knife. He proceeded to take a piece of sheet metal out and take one of these little punch daggers that he made, about as big as this knife really. Had a nice little handle on it, and he just ka-dunk right through the metal, and the knife was unscathed. So I was impressed and sold at the same time. So and that's the first time I actually seen that kind of a knife before. So it was kind of cool. Okay, so those are your standard fixed blade, and this again is a full tang knife. It's one big hunk of metal from tip to tip. All right, this is not a partial tang or half tang, which I do not tend to buy because, again, they're problematic and they break. As soon as you put them under stress, they tend to break right at the worst time. All right, so the next one I'm going to show you is a pretty standard folder. This is a SOG, S-O-G. folding knife. This is the Flash 2. I've had this knife for a lot of years. I love this knife. I've had it so long that I can kind of just whip it out, right? I'm just used to it. I'm pretty fast with it too. I used it at work one time and my coworker thought I had a switchblade. My bad. But it just flips out. It has a spring assist in it so that it will help that blade articulate to the full position and lock in. Alright, it's a pretty standard blade. It's got a little serration on there. Alright, it's got a little safety so that way when you close it down, alright, and if I reach over here and click that safety down, now that blade won't come out. It just won't come out. Okay? And then I reach over here and I click that little safety off, and it comes out for me again. And then there's the belt clip right there. Okay, pretty standard little knife there. And this is one I've carried, like I said, for years. Really light handle. This is a composite grip, and I'm not sure what it's made out of, but I've had it for 11 years, and to the point where the SOG has now put out the Flash 3. There's like a third version of this out now that I mean, they're cool, but I got this one. Okay, so now we're going to move on to what's called an out the front knife. This is what I call my John Wick knife. Right? Has a little glass breaker on the end there. Right? It has a little belt clip right here, which is a little tight. Excuse me. But it's a good little knife. And it has the little button right there. As you can see, it'll move forward for you. Okay, so and there's the little gap right in the front there, and the blade is inside the handle. Okay, and this button is a little stiff. Takes a little getting used to. One thing I don't like about this knife, if your hand is a little bit wet, it is really hard to hit that button. Your finger, it just kind of slides around in your hand. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So I usually wear this knife when I wear kind of nice clothes and I'm going out and I want to carry a knife. And this is really concealable. It slides right in your pocket, and I mean, it just disappears. All you see is this little metal clip and maybe this little thing sticking up, but it just vanishes. Okay, and like the one you see in the movies, if I press a button, the blade will articulate out the front. Okay, this is what's called a spear point, for obvious reasons. It's got the serrations on each side, and then the blade edge up here. It's super sharp, by the way, and I'm going to talk about sharpening here in just 1 second. And then if I pull back on this switch, the blade will go back inside of the handle. Now, there are some versions of these out there that if you hold this up to something and then you hit that switch, that blade is going to punch right in there and maybe not go all the way through it, but it's definitely going to push in there hard, and it's going to stab through it. This particular model, if you press it up against something and you hit it, the blade just kind of goes, it kind of halfway comes out, and then you got to pull it out. You hear it click into place, and then it'll work again. This has a safety feature in it where it doesn't really allow you to do that. Some of the out the front knives will. Some of the bigger, more expensive versions will allow you to do that. This is a smaller version that I bought just to see if I like the knife. I've been thinking about getting out the front knives for a while, but I wasn't really sure about it. This was on special at budk.com, which is a really good knife site. They have samurai swords, axes, tomahawks, utility weapons that you can use for survival, saws, folding saws, axes, hatchets, every conceivable kind of knife you can think of, Damascus steel. They have samurai swords. They have recreation Lord of the Rings swords. They have functional samurai swords. They have showpieces. They have actual weapons. I mean, these things, like some of these things, especially the M48, M as in mom, 48 line, those things are no joke, man. They make those things to be used against things, and I'll leave it at that. But this is just your standard out the front knife. And again, I wear different knives depending on kind of the clothes that I'm wearing and where I'm going and what I'm going to be doing and things like that. This is kind of my gentleman's knife. It's very concealable, it's very discreet, and it's very hard to see, but it gives me a nice little stabby should the situation arise. And with the glass breaker, the cool thing is obviously it gives me a kind of a force multiplier. If I hit somebody with that, it's going to hurt and do some damage. It's going to punch into your skin. But I can also break glass with it, right? I can just hit it, or I can take this and press it up against the surface and then hit it, and it will punch through for me. So those are just some of your standard knives that you have. And so I'm going to go back to the folder, and we're going to talk about sharpening. Okay, and I'm going to pretend my lighter here is my sharpener. Okay, so you want to go in one direction. So either I want to go down, right, down on the blade like that on each side, or I want to go away. I tend to go away, and I'm going to tell you why here in a second. So I tend to do that, okay, with my sharpener. I go away. Number one, it's safer, right? So I'm going down. I'm actually kind of bringing my hand towards the cutting and point edge of the knife, and that's dangerous. That's why they call them accidents. These things happen, especially if, say, you're in a survival situation and you're tired, you've been hiking all day, and you need to sharpen your knife to use it. Oops, I slipped and I cut my hand really bad, which in a survival situation can literally be deadly. You can get an infection and die, because the theory is that all services have broken down. You can't call an ambulance, you can't call the police for help, anything like that. You're on your own. Okay, which leads me into my next segment. We're gonna start talking about how to take care of preps. Okay, we talked about how to sharpen a knife. You want to go one direction. The reason why is because if you look at a knife under a microscope, under the right magnification, it basically looks like a big giant saw. It has teeth on it, right? And then when the knife gets dull, those teeth get pressed down and crossed over and mushed, and the knife becomes dull and doesn't cut so well. What you're doing when you're sharpening a knife, you're taking and straightening those teeth back out so that now that it will cut. Okay, so that's basically what you're doing when you're sharpening a knife on a molecular, on a very tiny kind of molecular level. You're taking something and you're realigning those metal shards on that knife to straighten back out so that it will cut for you. It's like it kind of looks like a saw under a microscope. Okay, so this is a sharpener that I'm offering on my website, Being There Outdoor Group. Okay, we have a Facebook page and we have the YouTube page, Being There Outdoor Group and Prepping Concepts. Okay, this is the sharpener that I'm going to be offering. Okay, you can purchase this sharpener through me for exactly $23. Okay, I will make the lanyard myself for you. This is $250 paracord. Okay, so if I double it up, it becomes $550 paracord. Actually, $600 paracord. That talks about how many strands are in there. Okay, $250 means that there are 2 additional strands on the inside of the casing. Right. $550 paracord usually means that there are 5 additional little nylon strands inside there that help make this a strong rope. And as I double them up, that strength increases. 550 becomes 1,000, etc. Okay, I'm going to show you the weave that I did. Okay, this is a basic, what they call knot weave. This is actually a Celtic technique that I picked up off of a website. It's the basic pattern that you can get, and I didn't do it very tight. The tighter you get it, it'll look a little different. All right, and I have a paracord bracelet that I made with this same version that came out pretty good actually, and I still have it. This will give you roughly 3 feet of paracord. I can use that for a bow drill in order to start fires, or a shoelace replacement, or tie something off, tie a tarp off, anything like that. Right, this is great thing about paracord is it's pretty water resistant. You can get it soaking wet and it's going to continue to function as you need it to function. Okay, so this is the sharpener I'm offering. Okay, it has, what you'll see here, I'm going to use the knife. Okay, what you see here is a coarse side right here. Okay, then you have what's the fine grit side right here. So you're going to put a finer edge on the knife. The coarse side is just to kind of get everything back where it needs to be and get a nice bevel on there. And then the fine side, you're really starting to sharpen down on the knife and make it sharp. And then if we flip it over, you'll see what's called a steel, a sharpening steel. And it's just like you see it, at home. Just something you can kind of draw and get a really, really precise edge on there. It's also good to help sharpen the serrations. I can draw that through the serrations and make it really sharp. This one is going to be really hard to see, but there's a little groove on the side of this right here for you to take a fishing hook and put in that groove and rub it back and forth to sharpen up your fishing hook. Okay, that's one of the other features it has. Okay, and this also has on this end a little whistle. Okay, and then if I pull on this, Okay. Now I have a little tiny fire steel. And I've actually used it, and it works really well. Okay, you can just take it and put, actually, you don't even need a knife to do this. You can take it and put it right in that little notch. Now watch. It's gonna throw sparks for you. Hang on. Where's it going? Wait. Sorry about that. Here. Anyway, it'll throw sparks for you. Okay? I can't get down on it right now. And plus I don't want to set myself on fire. But it will throw sparks for you. I've done it. It'll throw sparks. Here. I don't think you can see it. There it goes. Through one. There it went. Okay. So it will throw sparks for you. And you can use that to start a fire. Okay, so I'm offering this on the website. Now these things have a little a protective coating. You can see I'm starting to get that off now that I'm scraping it. That's why it's a pain in the butt to get them started sometimes. You don't like to throw sparks for you right away. And if I press that in there, it just locks right in there. And I can take that with me. Right? So I've got the nice little lanyard. I've got the sharpener. And it's got a little nice little gripper right there. And I got the one with the orange, so that way if it falls on the ground it's actually easier to see. You know, something that is dark colors, if it falls on the ground you can actually lose it pretty easily. Okay, so again, offering this on the website. You can purchase this from me for $23. That includes the shipping. I will ship it to you. Or for $30, I will send you a personalized video and I will show you exactly